All right, on to episode 25, and we got a double feature today of the Wildebeest. Yes, we are going to be making an exhibit for both the Black and Blue Wildebeest, and this is sort of going to be me making up for missing a few weeks, and hopefully we can get back on track to the schedule I had planned. Now, the exhibit we're going to be making is actually inspired by a picture I saw of a South African wildlife preserve where the observation area was on the side of a cliff. So just so that I don't have to go all out of the way, make an entire mountain range, cut through it, we're just going to make a nice little scenic area and then dip the ground in a bit and make a watering hole in a valley so that it looks more like what I'm trying to get at, without completely rearranging the topography of the map. Now, while I make our little valley, let's discuss the animals in question. So, the Black Wildebeest is the less common version. The Black Wildebeest being only from South Africa, the nation, Lesotho, Eswatini, and has recently been reintroduced to Namibia and Kenya. On the other hand, the very, very wide list the Blue Wildebeest inhabits consists of Kenya, Tanzania, Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, South Africa, the nation, Eswatini, and Angola. And they had also been seen in Malawi in the past and were recently reintroduced to Namibia. Now, the wildebeest is also known as the Gnu. I'll have Prim put it up here on how it's spelt, and it is the Kori word for the sound the wildebeest makes. Essentially, it's an onomatopoeia. The wildebeest makes somewhat of a mooing noise with a little bit of a closeness to the mouth, if that makes sense. So a lot of the names will actually incorporate it. For example, the Blue Wildebeest, while also being known as the Common Wildebeest, is also known as the White-bearded Gnu or the Brindled Gnu. Now, the Black Wildebeest doesn't quite have the set of nicknames. However, their scientific names are actually very different between the two. First off, the Black Wildebeest is known as the Konochates. I hope I'm saying that right. And that is Greek for flowing mane. So that is flowing mane twice to emphasize that this first wildebeest to properly be taxonomized by European explorers. And this would have actually happened in 1780 by Eberhard August Wilhelm von Zimmermann. And the Blue Wildebeest, having the scientific name Conochatus taurinus, meaning the flowing hair, like stated before, but taurinus means bull or bullock. Wildebeest was first described in 1823 by William J. Burchell, a very well-renowned naturalist who has gotten their name put on many things, including the actual scientific name of the zebra, we'll go into in that episode. Essentially, it looking more like a bull, like a cattle bull. Which, if you look at the two side by side, that makes plenty of sense. If you notice, even though the Black Wildebeest has horns that stick more forward like a bull would, the body shape of the Black Wildebeest is quite different. The Black Wildebeest has a much more equine look to its body, standing more upward with a longer neck and more of a horse-like mane that stands upright with long legs. Interestingly enough, if you are a Fallout nerd like me, looks like the flag of Caesar's Legion, while the Blue Wildebeest does have a more buffalo look to it, with its head sitting further down in a more straight way with a more laid back and loose mane with its horns coming out the side. Now, I personally think the Blue Wildebeest looks better, but that is completely subjective. Now, getting into the size of the animal, since we're talking about their appearance, the Black Wildebeest can be seen anywhere from 240 to 400 pounds on average. Obviously being sexually dimorphic, male to female, males being slightly larger. The blue wildebeest comes in with an even larger disparity of 310 to 900 pounds. Now, the size of the animal pretty much indicates their role in this ecosystem. To put it in a North American equivalent, it would be something along the lines of large deer species. Think the elk, and for the European, something more like the red deer. A larger deer species, but not quite the size of something like a moose. Certainly not something along the size of a buffalo either. There unfortunately isn't too much information about either wildebeest individually. However, since we're doing them together, it does make it a slight bit easier. And but let's start with their history. So while we don't really know quite how old the blue wildebeest is, it absolutely has been in the African plains for a very long time and used to have a much larger extent, hypothetically. So there isn't really any form of physical, tangible proof. However, looking back at the blue wildebeest, which from what I can tell through historical records, they would be kind of, as the name implies, the common wildebeest, the standard expectation where all the wildebeest would end up separating from. And some of them may have been seen as far north as parts of Egypt, because a slab with an inscription dating back to 3000 BC was found with the depiction of the blue wildebeest. Now, that is only the human documentation. We do know that the black wildebeest did separate from the blue roughly 800,000 years ago, and that is our estimation from the earliest fossils we found from them back in Free State, South Africa. So there is a good chance that it was a little bit beforehand. However, it's also important to note that it's very difficult to tell when certain species delineate due to the fact of fossil records are kind of hard to keep track of, seeing how a lot of them get destroyed, and it just really is much more messy of a science than I wish it was. Now, culturally speaking, unfortunately, there isn't a lot to go on. There's no real mythology or any form of holy significance that the wildebeest encompasses. However, there is a few important details to mention, and probably the biggest, most important one would have to be the Great Migration. So, the blue wildebeest in particular is known for traveling across a mass distance to get from one watering hole to the other from wet to dry seasons. And it is pretty much like clockwork. Occurring in April and May after the blue wildebeest bear their young, around February and March, they end up moving northeast towards the fresher, greener grasses of the central Serengeti, and usually are also accompanied by thousands of zebra. Now, thousands of zebra sounds like a lot. However, roughly speaking, the blue wildebeest will consist of 1.5 million animals in the Great Migration. This will lead to roughly 250,000 dead. Now, the reason for that is because it is so predictable. That is an opportune moment for crocodiles along rivers, lions in the brush, and wild dogs to prepare themselves to pick off those that they can. This Great Migration ends up feeding a very large amount of predators all throughout the year, depending on, of course, how successful their hunts are. It is such a massive part of the ecosystem that if, let's say, the grass ends up drying up and the deserts end up taking that area over more, it could absolutely destroy the food chain of South and East Africa. After their trip back to their original grounds down in the southwest, they do end up having their breeding season. And that mass migration can end up leading to 8,000 animals born a day, that time frame. So not only are these animals actually very important for other animals in the ecosystem, it's also extremely important for the local tribes of the areas that these animals live in. Seeing how the animal is mostly used for its hide and meat, being a very common source of food all throughout the area, it isn't surprising that pretty much when it comes to any form of veneration, it comes from their supply to the people in survival, with sustenance, clothing, the leather for armor and shields, and is also, in a non-domesticated way, is seen as quite the strong workhorse-style animal. Something that can bear its own and push through the harsh conditions that Africa has to offer. Now, there is something else that the animal can provide through its giving of life, and that is something its tails are used for. So if you take a look at the tails of the wildebeest, they essentially look a lot like very long, unkempt paintbrushes. And the animal itself uses them to swat flies away from their rear end, while their mane kind of works the same for their front. Well, not only does that work well for the animal, but local tribes have found that they could make something known as a fly whisk, which essentially works kind of like a fan. It can both help cool you off and also swat away, biting flies, something that is very prevalent in Africa. And we now reach the last piece of useful information I have. This one is specifically for the black wildebeest, and that is the fact that it is actually on the coat of arms for the province, state, region, Natal, South Africa. And there was also a printing of a 5 rand coin, which is the South African currency, with a prancing black wildebeest on one side. In conclusion, as you can see, while the animal is extremely influential in its existence, it surprisingly isn't that influential in, general culture. The animal is extremely important and constantly revered and loved by everyone in Africa, and is quite a spectacle to see. However, not much is put in through it. It seems to be one of the more, I guess for lack of better terms, generic animals that can be given to the zoo while still having a very interesting appearance. An appearance that obviously would not make any African savanna zoo complete without. Though I do have to say the black wildebeest probably would be more interesting on its own due to its lower numbers and slightly more solitary lifestyle. However, adding them together with the blue wildebeest, I feel it is actually a very good combination to show off not only something that is similar, but noticeably different to the average person. They may have issues with some of the other animals that are similar, like the grizzly bear or Himalayan brown bear, but these two wildebeests stand out very well with one another. So I think they actually work together very, very well. And now to the exhibit, finishing up. I did cut out the part when it comes to building the exhibit. As with in the Binturong video, I did decide to add some overhead coverage into some of the trees so that we can keep our more natural look while still having plenty of place for them to lie down with cover. But let's take a look and see how our animals enjoy this new environment that we have provided. So, as you can see, very easy animal to take care of. Not too much needs to be done, just a little bit of sand, a little bit of dirt, and as you can see, the only real issue we had weren't enough animals. And I did, in the end, add one more of each animal, one more female, to make it more comfortable for them and to pretty much bring their happiness up to 100%. There'll be plenty of room, and with the amount of males and females we're going to have in the exhibit, they'll have a nice breeding population. Which reminds me, one little bit of information I did forget is that these animals are very closely related, which does occasionally lead to interbreeding. Now, unfortunately, the two animals have a very different skull and neck structure, which ends up leading to the animal that is born to have a very difficult time making it past any meaningful expanse. It is also theorized that, much like a mule, they really wouldn't be able to reproduce. So we will not be getting some form of livid wildebeest in the future, as unfortunate as that is. But with all this said and done, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, comment, sub, all that fun YouTube stuff. And until next time, have a nice day, go outside, and I will be back. And I will see you next time with the black and white lemur. All right, thank you, goodbye.